Would be fixed. 1 second is carrying over. Marshall confirming we are live on YouTube.
Thank you. So the time is 6:33 p.m. on April 17th, 2025. We will start the Board of Public Safety meeting for the City of Wildwood. First order of business to be roll call.
Marshall Bader.
Here.
Excuse me. Board Member Gleason.
Here.
Board Member Loyal.
Here.
Board Member Vanek.
Here.
Council Liaison Farmer.
Here.
Captain Mundell.
Here.
Battalion Chief Hafer.
Here, and that's a deputy chief at this point.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Thank you.
Change that.
Okay, that concludes the roll call. First order of business is the approval of minutes. Those minutes were on the October 10, 2024 meeting. The minutes were attached to the agenda. I'm assuming that people have had a chance to review them. If anybody needs a few minutes to take a look at them, just let me know.
I do have one question on them.
Sure.
Specific to the deer calling. In the meeting, we also, I think, discussed the line item of meat processing for share the harvest that the state of Missouri provides that, and they reimburse hunters for that. And I think the question was if that would also be able to apply to our culling effort.
Yeah, so we did. I can answer that with your permission, Marshall.
Yes, please.
We did reach out to MDC in that regard, but that is for more so single one-offs, like individual entities that would go in and donate the meat just because they've had a good season. They're clearing off their land. So when it comes to this program, they are not willing to reimburse us. That said, we did include a provision in the contract just to shore it up that all meat would either go to share the harvest. It ended up going to share the harvest, and then also the St. Louis Zoo, which we'll talk about tonight.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you for asking it. Do we have any other questions regarding the minutes from the October meeting? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second for the October board meeting minutes. I'm sorry. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the approval of the minutes? Hearing no nays, the meeting minutes are approved. Moving on our agenda, the next item is public comment. Do we have any public comments for this meeting?
If anybody in the attendee circle would like to make public comment, if you could please raise your hand, use the raise hand feature. We can go ahead and we'll promote you to a panelist position. Mr. Loyal, do you have, I saw your hand. Oh, that's
right. I have public comments if there's no one else in the audience. First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate Deputy Chief Joe Hafer from Metro West on his promotion to Fire Marshal in the district. Joe's had a long, distinguished career with the district, and he would do a great job as Fire Marshal. And the city of Wildwood certainly is going to benefit from his knowledge and service to our community. So congratulations, Joe.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. Means a lot.
The next item, I have a couple items actually, and I would defer to the marshal if he would like me to mention them now or at some point later in the meeting. But I have a question, a comment regarding the fact that we haven't had a meeting since October. It's difficult for me to understand how a city of 35,000 people doesn't have public safety issues for 6 months. If nothing else, I think that we should provide a forum for the community to address this body, which then funnels it to the city council for any issues that may occur. That's a concern of mine. I know that since we've last gathered, and I'm an advocate for the fire service, so everybody knows that. Eureka Fire District has had Chief Greg Brown retire, over 40 years of service, and I don't know that the city recognized his service. I had the good fortune when I completed my career with Metro West of being recognized by Wildwood. I had a city day for Wildwood. Mayor Werther and the city administrator, made it a big point. I went to a city council meeting, was recognized, and it's very meaningful to me, and to this day I remember it. The new chief, Scott Barthelmess, I don't know if the council or this committee has had the opportunity to meet him, but he will do a great job leading Eureka Fire District, which is an integral part of the operation for the city of Wildwood. And likewise in Monarch Fire District, they opened their station number 2 on Waterhorse Creek Road, which there was some controversy initially about whether they should even build it, but it's a wonderful facility that's going to benefit everybody. And perhaps the biggest news there is that they put their ambulance 2227 in service, which is a very big deal for our community. I know Council Member Eden supported that operation, and the fact that it's now in service, I think that we should provide a forum for which then they're able to acknowledge it with the city. So there's a lot going on in our community, and I have a difficult time believing, the website still says that the Board of Public Safety meets monthly, but we changed it to 2 months, and I have to believe that there's enough stuff going on in the city of 35,000 people to have a meeting at least every 2 months to provide the citizens of our community an opportunity to address this part. So thank you.
And Vince, I will say, we're limited on the comments we can make to your statement. Your statement is appreciated. I think it does ring true. And I would encourage you to bring these matters to the agenda for the Board of Public Safety in the future. And I think that, in my opinion, I think the board would support every point that you just brought out. So
I would like a question regarding that. I'm the longest serving voting member on the board, and I'm not exactly sure how the agenda is formulated. Do I go through you, Mr. Marshall, or do I go through a member of the city? Or perhaps some clarification there would benefit me in understanding on how to proceed in the future and bring these things to the attention of the board.
Typically, Mr. Brown takes care of making sure those agenda items get added to the agenda. So I would encourage you to, outside of your official scope as a board member, but as a citizen of Wildwood, to contact him and let him guide you into the direction of how we can formally recognize. You're right in your statement. These are significant accomplishments, and congratulations, Joe. Okay. These are significant accomplishments by our first responders who serve our community. And I agree with you on 2 points. I think that we as a city need to recognize their achievements. And secondly, I think you will get to this in the business agenda about what we should do with the new chief. So.
And as a board member, how do I add things to the agenda then?
You're still a citizen of Wildwood, and you're still able to go outside of the formal board and contact the city regarding your concerns.
And I understand that part of it. Just as a member of the board itself, should I contact the marshal or the mayor? Or...
Yes, if you send those items to me, I will be happy to make sure they get placed on the agenda.
Great. Thank you for that clarification, Marshall. Appreciate it.
Sure. Any other public comments?
As of right now, Marshall, I am not seeing any hands raised. No other public comments this time. Last chance, if anybody would like to make public comment, please use the raise hand feature. No other public comments, Marshall.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Loyal, and also congratulations again to Joe. The board will now close the public comment section, and we'll move on to the informational section. First item up for the agenda is the update on the crosswalk at Clayton Road at Lafayette High School. This was discussed briefly at a previous meeting, and I think that Mr. Brown is present to give us an update on what is happening with that location.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Marshall, board members. As Marshall stated, we did present this originally to you, I believe, last October, and wanted to provide an update on the concern. As you recall, this is relative to the request by a resident the subdivision adjacent to Lafayette High School of the need essentially to improve the crosswalk, make it safer. It connects essentially at the eastern driveway at Lafayette High School on Clayton Road to the subdivision to the north. And so the request was to try to get the county to concur and move forward with the installation of the rapid rectangular flashing beacons at that crosswalk. So I guess the short update is that we have been notified within the last, I would say 30 days or so, that the county does have plans and is budgeting funds for a project that would install rapid rectangular flashing beacons at several locations throughout the county, and they have included this crosswalk in that list to be provided lights. So that should be moving forward, and it was good news, welcome news to hear that from the county for a change, that they are planning to do that on their own and fund it out of county funds. And timeline on that is to have it completed and installed by the end of 2026. So it's still a little bit of ways, but they have stated they will move forward with that work. So with that, I'll be glad to stop unless Thomas wants to add anything to it. We can certainly address any questions.
With your permission, Marshall. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, this is kind of an awesome example of when this board really, the public comment section of the council and the board works really well. We had a resident, just to kind of give some background, a resident came to a city council meeting, had brought up the concern, kind of put a spotlight onto it, and the city was able to make contact with the county. They did their own study of it and then said, hey, you know, it is definitely eligible for this type of work, but that said, we didn't have budget for it. But the tenacity of the resident, also a group of residents over there reaching out to the county on top of the city's efforts, it ended up leading to a favorable solution. So happy to see them added this to the schedule. And I know the parents and the school district is very happy to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Loyal?
Thank you, Marshall. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on this. I think it's a wonderful idea in front of Lafayette, certainly needed. The other question I have is regarding the maintenance of these devices. You know, I live right off of Cherry Hills Meadows Drive, and interestingly enough, the document that was sent to us in our board packet showed a picture of the electronic device that used to be at Cherry Hills Meadows and Manchester Road as an example of what this light might look like. And that light is no longer in existence. It was struck, and I don't know what the intent is. But in addition to that, the light at Old Fairway in Manchester, the center light has been out for months. I sent a letter to Scott Hummel last October, and they're trying to get that fixed. So my concern is that if we put these new devices in place, are they going to be maintained appropriately, or we just put them up and then that's the end of it? And you know, we did a good job one time, but they're not being maintained. Thank you.
Does anybody have an answer? I'm assuming, and I know it's not safe to assume, but I'm going to assume that if St. Louis County is installing it, they're probably going to agree to the maintenance of it.
Yeah, in this case, Marshall, with your permission,
Yes.
I can let our Director of Public Works speak to the Old Fairway one. I do remember hearing that. But the flashing beacons being put up on Clayton, so in that case, it's owned and operated by the county. So in that case, they'll maintain it definitely.
Thank you.
Is it possible that Wob would dovetail on whoever the county is using for maintenance to repair the one at Cherry Hills Meadows in Manchester, as well as the one at Old Fairway in Manchester?
Rick, do you have any comment on that?
We have had some difficulty getting parts and a contractor lined up to do it. It is somewhat specialized, and those contractors, in our experience, has been difficult to get their attention to pursue these kind of smaller items. I'll check on that one again and see if we can get it cleared out. Because I'll admit it's been too long.
And that's my whole point, is if there's no sense putting something up that can't be made, because somebody's going to run into them, unfortunately. And if we can't maintain them, then why go through the expense initially of putting them up and improving?
Mr. Farmer, I see your hand up. Remember, you are muted, so there you go.
Yeah. Hey, guys. So I would just say, I mean, I'm in favor of the crosswalk for sure. I'm glad we've got the county going on this. But I think we want to at least, the very least, communicate to the residents that, and remind ourselves that if this thing goes in somewhere at the end of 2026, that's almost 3 years since these people brought it up, and putting a crosswalk in front of a school genuinely does not seem like something that should take 3 years to me. That's kind of wild. I also might suggest, although it's not, I guess it's the same spot as where we're talking about here, in the mornings when people are leaving Lafayette, coming out of that intersection where this crosswalk is going to be, it's pretty hairy. I might suggest that we maybe look at a study of some kind to see if we want to limit left turns coming out of there just in the morning when school is happening, because in the afternoon, cars come out and go both directions, but in the morning it's one lane that goes both directions, and buses come in, and it's a nightmare. So that all kind of connects to this crosswalk spot where, you know, there's safety concerns all the way around.
My
So,
experience with if I may, your Marshall.
Yes,
Mr. Marshall.
yes, sir. Go ahead.
I guess my experience with the county, Councilmember Farmer, is that they will typically do a study of the location before they proceed with design of the improvements. So my anticipation is there would be some engineering done to look at that location before they just proceed ahead with design and then in the installation of the lights. But we can certainly follow up on that.
I mean, I'm just thinking if we can try to stand on the gas there a little bit, and since it is going out onto a county road, I don't know how much input we as the city could have in terms of saying, you know, let's just put a no left turn here from, you know, 7 to 9 in the morning during the week or something. But I think we need to look at that, because it is, I mean, it is hit or miss, literally hit or miss every day, all morning.
And I would agree with you, Mr. Farmer, that we probably, I want to, you know, congratulate the City of Wildwood on being able to work through this and get St. Louis County to agree to take on this project. And I do think that some messaging to the city would be appropriate to show the residents of the City of Wildwood that the city is paying attention to their concerns and is addressing them when those concerns are brought to their attention. So, and I can leave the message. I would leave the messaging up to, you know, the city itself.
Just to, with your permission, Marshall.
Yes, sir.
I did want to just bring up the residents that had brought up the request. There was direct communication with them via telephone and email to confirm that this project is proceeding. You know, the timetable is definitely a little bit longer than one would want, but also there's been a request to try to expedite the process over to our county councilman as well. And we've requested that the residents do the same to try to get this on the priority board for them, but they have promised and committed to do it before 2026. We could put something out as a little announcement to kind of maybe add a little bit of, let's just say, some friendly guidance to maybe get it done a little quicker by social media on our website.
Yeah, I think just, Tom, it makes sense to me. Like, it is a great thing that we're able to get the county to work with us on this, and we shouldn't, you know, we shouldn't make that sound bad. But I think we do want to make it clear to our residents that, like, this is a county thing. So to this point, we have now succeeded in getting them to agree to do this, but that's about as much as the city can do. It's up to them moving forward. So if residents have questions or concerns, let's direct them to, you know, Councilmember Harder or whomever it might need to be.
Excellent idea. The department will get something out tomorrow.
All right. Is there any more discussion on the crosswalk at Clayton Road? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next update, which is the MoDOT Safety Improvement Project.
Mr. Marshall and board members, just wanted to provide you an update on this project as well. I think it was on your October calendar or agenda as well. MoDOT started work last year on their multi-year safety improvement project. That's a $52 million improvement project for improving the safety at 200 locations in Jefferson, St. Louis and St. Louis City. That work is well underway. I think probably the unfortunate reality of that project is that it got a lot of negative attention relative to the islands that were constructed on Clarkson Road and then also Long Road, which MoDOT, I understand, is removing at this point. But there was a lot of other work that went into that improvement project. Most of that has been wrapped up at this point. And we've seen some of that in Wildwood as well. I want to mention part of that project is the skid resistant overlay or high friction surface treatment on Old State Road. And that's something that the city ended up working with the county and actually expended about almost $330,000 towards those improvements. So that, I didn't go down Old State Road today, but the Old State work should be wrapped up here soon, from my understanding. So that'll be a welcome thing to see done and completed here shortly. So if there's any other questions, I'll do my best to address them, but just wanted to provide you a quick update on that project for you. Thank you.
And I've heard outside of my capacity as city marshal, I've heard that the state is now removing all of those islands at some point in the future.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Let's try not to make that same mistake as a city. So, all right. Moving on to the agenda. The next item is an update on the deer management activities.
Thank you, Marshall. I can give an update on that. Tonight, you'll have a decent sized report in front of you. At our last meeting, we discussed at the time upcoming operations, and White Buffalo did successfully come out as planned and culled the targeted amount of 355 deer within the NE2 region that was planned. In this case, they went above a little bit at 6 extra deer with a total of 361. And that would bring our total for the first 2 years of the program up to 661 deer. So they operated for 29 nights out of the 31 days that they were stationed here in Wildwood to get to that goal. And they were averaging about 12.44 deer per night. In this case, majority of them were adult females, but there were also some males, but most of them did not have antlers, which is actually a pretty good sign, shows that the population is somewhat thinning. So that's good. We had a great experience with them again this year. There were actually no complaints. We got generalized. We had a form and still is published for general feedback for the deer management program. But with a program like this, you would anticipate that there could be just general feedback, residents calling in, what's going on. In this case, we had a pretty extensive communication strategy, which it seemed to assist, and also some open house meetings that took place. But during operations, we actually didn't get a single call about, like, the year before, year one, we got 2 about just see what was going on. They saw the individuals operating. They were actually just scoping out the property they were working at. But this year we didn't actually get any. And I think that was done because of repeated mailers that we had sent to residents. We had sent a total of 4 letters to each individual resident that lived in the NE2 region and the targeted portions of NE1. So great news on that front. Getting into the meat and potatoes of this, and there was 3 exhibits I wanted to provide the board tonight. One being the final report from White Buffalo, kind of the overview of the operations that took place in 2025. And then the 2 other attachments, which we just hot off the press, so we haven't had too much time to analyze them. They were just recently submitted with St. Louis County, Wildwood Precinct, and our consultant that helps us on the ground, retired Sergeant Brad Windling. They actually conducted raw data collection for the NE1, NE2, and that covers the 2 areas that we have conducted operations in, and the SE1 region earlier here in March of 2025, right after we had completed culling. In this case, we got the data back, and right now it seems to show a pretty positive trend. There is a table in the report provided right on the last page before you get into the White Buffalo final report that kind of breaks out the NE1 and NE2 regions. That's where we have the best data. You'll notice that the SE1 region that was supposed to be, you want to call in contiguous land masses. So the idea would be to move to SE1, but the data may suggest otherwise. We can discuss that a little bit further, but getting into the data, NE1 and NE2, we have fresh reports for deer sampling in 2025, 2024, and then the first analysis that took place was back in 2020. So if you look at NE1, where we have conducted strategic culling over the past 2 years, you see a pretty nice decline over the lower bound, which would, with the confidence interval, the way that they do their statistic modeling, that's kind of building in a variance that could actually be taking place because you can only see so many deer, and it's based off human observation. So in this case, you see all three numbers are declining year over year, and the deer population is estimated about 58.8 deer per square mile in the NE1 region after operations took place. So that is great to see that we're seeing a pretty stark decline. That said, I wanted to just bring up one item about NE1. There are some properties on the northern bound of NE1 where if you account for those properties, because that's where the majority of the sightings took place, if you account for those large kind of farmlands right on the Shepherd, Strecker Valley Road area, you actually take that data out, you actually will see that the deer density is more appropriate at like 37.1 deer per square mile, which is under the target for the city of getting the deer population down to 40. One of the issues with that little pocket that is formed up there is that there is a large landmass. We've been fortunate enough to have the Boy Scouts of America who had donated property off Valley. We've gotten access to there over the past 2 years, which we have been able to make some inroads, but there is a large property on the northern side that unfortunately they are requesting an insurance amount from the consultant, to White Buffalo in this case, that is unattainable. It's more than what the city requires. And it seems like there has been multiple attempts to try to work on that property because that's where a lot of the deer population seems to be at this time in the NE1 region. That's really where the pocket is. And in this case, there's that pocket, and then going into NE2, which we'll jump in here. NE2 back in 2020, we were at about 64.2 deer per square mile. We saw that there was no operations at NE2 during 2024 when we started. It was just NE1. We saw that population, which I will admit there's a variance here, but we saw that population, even if you look at the lower and upper bounds, that population jumped pretty high. There's a plethora of different reasons, but obviously this is based off human observation. So it could be a little bit closer to what the lower bound is on that second tab. But if you look at 2025, the most recent data analysis shows about 34 deer per square mile, which is pretty consistent. When you look at the NE1 region, if you conduct the operations, it seems like you're cutting about 20 deer per square mile each time you conduct the operation itself. So it does seem like it is lowering the population overall. It's lowering the number of sightings. The anecdotal data is suggesting that residents that have participated, they are noticing a very meaningful difference. And a lot of individuals, when they're getting home late at night, they definitely are. We've gotten a lot of calls thanking us, and not too many calls that are too much against it. But to provide the flip side of that same argument, the form that we had on the website for resident participation, so we would survey their property after that, they submit it. And the form also offers an avenue for residents just to provide general feedback. One of the things we do receive are residents that are against the program in general, just because they do not like the idea of removing deer. That said, I just want to make sure that their claims were listened to here tonight. But if you turn to the SE1 region, where there's been no culling activity, the SE1 region is south of Highway 100 and east of 109. But not quite too south. There's the SE2 region as well. You'll see that the data that was collected in 2020 was almost replicated to a T back in 2025. We've seen a pretty small increase in the number of deer. And if you look at the upper and lower bounds, you'll actually notice that the data collection was a little bit more tight. And I think that's because we've added an extra day of data collection for the SE1 region to try to get as accurate as a sample as possible. That said, the deer population currently in that area is around the target area in which the city has been looking to get its population overall. So the first idea was to conduct operations in the SE1 map area in 2026, start planning for that accordingly, and also having an option for the NE2 region. It is at 34 deer per square mile, but just to go back to this most recent operation, we had some HOAs that were unwilling to participate in the program this year, and it left a couple little gaps in the NE2 map area. We tried to get around this by mailing directly to the residents within those subdivisions. That said, when we tallied up the total number of residents, we found that they were not able to have partners or property owners next to them that would be willing to participate. And when you add up the total land mass, you were just not clearing the enough to conduct safe and effective operations. So in this case, in most areas, you are going to need buy-in from the HOA to then use their large common ground with property access from a private property owner. Unfortunately, there was some HOAs that decided not to participate. And one option the department and the city had talked about, and city council, is that we may want to go back to those HOAs now that the operation's taken place. And usually after what we saw this year was a lot of residents that were against the program or just wary actually contacted us this year and said, hey, I heard it was very successful last year and would like to participate. Unfortunately, there were certain targeted areas, and that was where we were going to make sure we were evenly lowering the population. So the same we're thinking may apply here, because when we had the resident reach out in a specific neighborhood, there were plenty of them that said that the deer population is pretty large. In my neighborhood, I almost hit them every night. We said, hey, we need you to contact your HOA and we'd love to work with you. So I do believe that the HOAs are probably getting quite a few more calls from their residents, letting them know that, hey, the city has this program available. So if the HOA, we're almost thinking that we could give them an opportunity to fill in those gaps and try to lower the herd in those high density areas. And then from there, if they are willing to participate, only then would we go back and revisit the NE2 region, just so we could touch up specifically Wild Horse subdivision, the Highlands, Garden Valley was a big one. Those were some of the areas that if you looked at a distribution map of property access, it was very evenly distributed, it was clean. But there were just those small gap areas that were caused just because the property access wasn't there. This is a very similar case to what was found with the large property that's on the northern bound of the NE1 region. So back to kind of next steps with this program is that the SE1 region was originally anticipated. We thought we were going to see a slight increase and then have some revisiting of NE2 as part of 2026, with the population density being at about 42.9, and at the max it could be, just based off observation, would be about 61.4. It does seem that that area is almost kind of taken care of. So right now, the department's working with White Buffalo. There's a couple of approaches that we may look to start investigating a little bit further. And one is trying to take a direct, right now we're slowly moving our way around the 6 map areas. And with the SE1 region, that would continue that process, which in totality and in the long term, you have to do it that way to have an even lowering of the population. That said, to try to kind of curb some of the deer vehicle collisions that have taken place on 100 and 109. 109 has been addressed to a certain extent if you're going north, but 100 has not been, accessed too much just because we don't have the map areas covering that section. The department has been looking into having a direct mailer to the pretty much about a 0.25 mile radius outside of Highway 100 and Highway 109 to potentially introduce strategic culling along these 2 major road corridors, to then lower the population that's directly adjacent to the roadways to hopefully have a direct impact on the deer population, while also conducting limited operations in the SE1 region and then revisiting the NE2 region where the HOAs had not allowed property access. There is quite a bit of information tonight, so I do apologize for taking so much time, but the department's available and for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Loyal.
Sure. Can Mr. Lee remind us of the total cost for 2 years of the program, please?
Yes, so the first year was $209,000 and the second year was $267,000.
Okay, and that's all, is that out of the budget, or is there a grant involved or special funding?
That is out of the budget. The council has created, back in the end of 2024, they created a deer management fund to fund the first 5 years of the operation. So in
Great,
this
thank
case,
you.
it is, yeah.
And if I remember correctly, Mr. Lee, the true impact of the program really doesn't become visible until as much as year 5. Is that correct?
That seems to be the case, and that's the idea of bringing that population down to approximately 40 deer per square mile. It's around, if you look at it, there's 6 different map areas. There's 2 that are pretty much hug west, well, west 1, west 2 that hug 100 going west. And then you have the northeast 1, northeast 2 area, which is east of 109 and north of 100. And you got southeast 1 and southeast 2, which is south of 100, east of 109. Those 5 areas, 6 areas were studied. That's where we found the 72 deer per square mile, and those are our most densely populated areas. It's the only place you can really consider controlling it, considering our big state parks that we have outside. And in this case, within that grouping of those, our major roadways, the idea would be to bring it down to 40 deer per square mile over that 5-year duration. And it seems as if we're getting closer. With if the data rings true, which for SE1 having 2 different reads being very consistent, it seems like the replacement rate is actually pretty healthy. So that's good to see. But when you look at the NE1 region, you still have a little bit of bloat. It's still at 58.8, but when you control for that one property we have not been able to get access to, and bringing it down to approximately 37 deer per square mile, that makes a pretty good case that we've kind of conducted and concluded operations in the NE1, and then the NE2 region coming down to 34 deer per square mile with some potential touch up. Overall, it's going to take some time, but we can already start seeing that this program is lowering the population.
Thank you. Mr. Bannock?
Hi, quick question, I guess. I believe, wasn't it the 3rd year that it's actually supposed to start, the cost per year is supposed to start decreasing next year? Is that correct?
Yeah, the cost should start decreasing. It's going to be somewhat consistent with what we're having now. You shouldn't see the decrease until year 5. So it's supposed to be a targeted approach for the first 5 years, and then we're supposed to turn into more of a maintenance level. So how we have structured this is to move about the 6 different map areas, with West 1 and West 2 being a combination, considering the fact that we have very large acre land lots out there, and there's just a little bit easier access out there, is from what we've been able to find so far. But slowly move around these map areas and lower this population down to approximately 40 deer per square mile. And at that point, we would really just be tracking the number of deer vehicle collisions, which should be on a decline. And then we should also be tracking, just with these annual surveys, to be able to see what the deer population is, to check the replacement level. If we see that it's been decreasing, or if we see it jump, we can have a targeted approach where it should drop off pretty dramatically. The idea there, though, too, is especially west of 109, we really want to have these hunters start getting out there and taking the toll on the herd itself. I mean, that's a big part of the problem, is that there's just so many deer in wildwood, that there's too many that the hunters can't even take control of.
So you project next year the cost will be similar to the first 2 years.
That's correct. For the 3rd
And
year,
then-
year 4, and year 5.
And then year 4 and year 5, same thing again?
Year 4 and year 5, I could see it somewhat decrease, but it's still, the problem is, not the problem, but the idea here is it's a nonprofit organization, so we're really paying for the amount of days that they're out here working. So they're usually working around 30 days. So if we can get the number of days that they need down, then in that case, that's when we'll start to see the cost drive down. So when we're talking about maybe coming out to lower the deer herd by 20 to 50 deer, which could be done after that year 5, where you're just trying to shave a little bit off the top. In that case, the cost will be dramatically decreased, because they'll just be coming out for maybe a weekend or so.
Yeah, I'm just obviously concerned about the costs, and that we're using basically we're using city money to solve a problem that's actually should be a state problem. And we're using city money to accomplish that. So it's a kind of a failure in my opinion, a failure of the state policies, that we could be perhaps extending the deer season. There's things that could be looked at, because my other fear is that we get to year 5 and let's say we stop, and then things go back to where they were, and we have to start all over again and spend city money to solve what appears to me as a state issue. So those are, my concerns going forward. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Any more comment on the deer management update?
I just had a quick question, Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Rather than the numbers are probably there to calculate, I didn't see an report, but cost per deer, did it remain the same? Was it higher, lower, or
It
I'm
was
just
very
curious?
similar. I'd have to check the exact number. Oh, let me
Okay.
make sure. Am I on mute? Oh, 1 second. I could pull that real quick. And
Well, that's okay. I
back
was
to
just
you.
curious. Like I said, I know we have the total numbers rather than figure it here. I was just curious if
It
stayed the
was
same.
so this year we were projecting it when it was at 355 for that amount of time. We were projecting that it was going to cost $754 per deer, and then it was actually decreased by not much, but $741.78 per deer.
Okay.
That was this year's cost, but we were definitely in the 700s for year one as well. And I could pull that just 1 second.
That's okay. That's
No.
fine. I was just curious.
It's pretty consistent for year one and year two.
Thank you.
Mr. Farmer? Yeah, Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, sorry, Tom, I might have missed this when when I switched over to the computer. How much do we have left in our deer account for?
So currently, we had $1 million was transferred over into that account with the 267, 209. We have approximately about $520,000 in the account.
Yeah,
The fund, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I just know as a lot of this, the first year happened close to me just by happenstance. The success rate is very, very noticeable. So I'm with you, Mr. Vanek, about the state thing. But as you will find here in a couple of weeks when you join us on the council, there's a plethora of things the state should be taking care of that they don't, that we get to be responsible for. So it's a good program. I've heard nothing but good things from the subdivisions that have been involved. And I think for any residents out there that are concerned about this in and around their area, just, reach out to some of the folks that have had it, because it has been, it's almost like these guys aren't there. They come in, they do their work, and they move on. It is as surgical as it can get, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I can echo those same sentiments, Board Member Farmer. I mean, at the end of the day, usually when we have a contractor doing any type of work, just kudos to them. We usually get a call no matter what. In this case, there's like one very small instance where we don't have that happen. They're very professional. And also talking with residents, I've had quite a few anecdotal experiences that they have said, if it was any other group or any just normal, if you just had hunters showing up to my property, I would never have in a million years participated in this, but the experience and the kind of the tact of working across the country, I think, does help them.
Is there any more comment on the deer management update? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is an update on the MoDOT and city projects.
Mr. Marshall, board members, want to provide you an update on road construction projects in the city of Wildwood for this year. We are just starting out a very busy summer for road construction. When you look at the overall work that's planned, city's got some projects as well as a full slate of improvements by MoDOT. We're continuing with our Manchester Taylor resurfacing and signal improvement project, which has been underway for a while now. That's moving forward on schedule. And MoDOT's roundabout located at 109 Wild Horse Creek Road is moving forward, and it should be wrapped up by the end of the year. All things favorable there. But in addition to those two projects, MoDOT is starting resurfacing of Route BA, Route 109 from 100 up to Wild Horse Creek Road. And then they've just recently started work on Route 100, resurfacing of Route 100 from West Glen Farms out through Double O in Franklin County. And included in the 100 improvements, of course, are the city MoDOT cost share improvements, which add the left turn lanes and the J turns at Route T and at Pond Road. So overall, that's, I believe, about a $14 million project. And then we have our own projects that are starting up. We've got a annual concrete street replacement project and an annual asphalt resurfacing project, as well as a small project to do some rehab work on our Centaur Bridge, which is located on Centaur Road, just north of Wild Horse Creek Road. So it's going to be a busy summer. You'll probably see work zones out there when you're traveling around. It totals to about $32 million in roadway projects this summer between MoDOT and the city. And that's pretty, I think that's unprecedented for Wildwood. So it's a huge investment in federal, state, and city funds into our infrastructure. So with that, I'll wrap up. And if you have any specific questions, we'll be glad to do our best to address them.
Do any of the board members have questions for Mr. Brown regarding the updates on MoDOT and city projects? Mr. Brown, thank you for that update. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of construction going on. Next item up is first quarter crime report. Do we have an update on that, Captain Mundell, or is it?
I got something pretty brief. So in general, our crime is defined in three categories. It's crimes against persons, crimes against property, and crimes against society. So I'll give you a brief overview. So crimes against persons obviously range from a homicide down to minor assault situations. So looking at the first quarter of this year compared to the first quarter of last year, we're seeing a reduction. And Mr. Farmer and I, talked about percentages versus real numbers. So we say we got about a 25% decrease that we're seeing. And what that relates to is this year we've had 20 incidents reported in the first quarter, 20, crimes against person situations compared to 27 last year. So the percentages look really good, but the numbers are really low to begin with. So there's not a whole lot of difference there. Moving on to crimes against property, that deals with robberies, burglaries, auto theft, any kind of theft, larceny, shoplifting, all that falls into the crimes against property category. And we're seeing about a 50% drop compared to last year. So the real numbers there, first quarter of 24, there were 62 incidents, and the first quarter of this year, we're at 31. So the last item, the crimes against society, a lot of this is driven by what the officers encounter in stops or kind of self-initiated stuff. Not much of a difference there. Last year was 25 incidents. This year we're at 23, slight reduction. But this is situations like drug violations. Obviously the law changed regarding marijuana. A lot of that in the past, was marijuana cases. There's DWIs that are involved in this, curfew violations, minor trespassing situations like that fall under the crimes against society. So overall, good news. I'd love to say it's our great police work. It is great police work, but I think in the area as a whole, we're seeing a reduction, in various jurisdictions. Whatever's causing the trend, it's a good thing. It's kind of area wide. In the near future, something that we wanted to do was kind of compare, our area to the surrounding area. So instead of looking at the numbers for the entire county, kind of complicated, we could probably do that. We're going to kind of block it off to the West County area. So roughly everything west of 270, south of 64, north of 44, which is kind of our region out here. Communities are similar. We'll see where Wildwood falls into those jurisdictions. There's probably a dozen or so different jurisdictions that'll generate those numbers, just to get an idea of where we're at. Comparing Wildwood to the North County precinct, totally different, communities, environments. So we'd look really great there, but they're experiencing different crime there than we experience out here. So that's what I got as far as a crime report.
And Mr. Loyal?
I saw online where we've initiated a new program, Safe Speed, Safe Streets. Can you talk about that a little bit? I didn't know anything about it, and
Sure.
apparently we've adopted it.
That was due to some traffic complaints that were passed on to the mayor. We had a conversation. What can we do? We can do an enforcement project where we're dedicating officers to specific roads, and in this case, it's Highway 109, Highway 100, excuse me, and Clayton Road. So we did our first weekend. We had our officers. I had some connections to get us some quick grant money to pay for some overtime. In addition to our department's highway safety unit, they provided a couple officers to help us out. So that first weekend was last weekend, 2 nights, Friday night, Saturday night. So we're looking in particular in the evenings from roughly 7 o'clock to midnight. We found pretty quick that at about 10 o'clock or so, traffic really goes to about nothing. Very, very thin, in after hours. Very successful, as far as that first weekend, over 80 stops, a couple DWI arrests, 50, 60 citations, for various offenses, most of them being speed. So our intent was to do 2 weekends in April. This weekend was going to be the next go at it. We're going to push that a little bit further down because we're due to have rain over the weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday's obviously Easter. So most likely we're going to postpone that to the following weekend in April. And then we're looking to reevaluate. Most likely we'll do 2 more weekends in May. And this is all kind of leaning into the construction projects on Highway 100 have just gotten underway too. So we're trying to draw some attention to that.
Are these kind of special projects the sort of thing that maybe the Board of Public Safety would have some role in supporting or endorsing or commenting on, or is it just self-initiated?
It was really at the recommendation of the mayor and city administrator.
That is correct.
These are always speed complaints are constant. So it's an effort to address that. We always try to address that. But bringing in, extra people is, I'm kind of surprised actually that I was able to accomplish that.
No, kudos to you. It's great. Just kind of thinking about working as a partnership and accomplishing these things for the whole community. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, there was some grant funding that I was able to tap into. So at the moment, costs are covered. So thank you for asking. The mayor was ecstatic that and how successful it was that first weekend. So
that's great.
Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, thanks for the report, Captain Mandel. I know I owe you a couple notes on it, but this is a really big step in the right direction for what we talked about. So I know you guys worked hard on this, and I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate it.
Yeah, as far as the crime report, I rely on we have a planning and analysis unit in headquarters, so they're tasked with crunching the numbers and doing all that research for me. So I got to kind of fall in line where I'm asking for extra different stuff but they're also responsible for the crash report, which we'll talk about in a minute too. So that was the main project that they've been working on, all of our accident statistics. So that got finished, and then it's, I could lead into the crime stat stuff. So.
Well, that'd be good. Maybe some of these changes they can start to push out, countywide. I think that some of our other, your guys' other city partners, not necessarily ours, but those numbers are important, I think, across the board. So that could be good.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with statistics, somebody can grab statistics from somewhere and twist them to however they want to do it. So, I'm surprised a little bit that, things are looking up. And I know our neighbors, that we all pretty much experience the same kind of crime and same kind of issues. And, there has not been anything really major happening around here. So that's a good thing.
I would close out this part of the comment section on the crime report is a couple of things. One, it's a credit to Captain Mundell, you and your team, that first of all, to keep the numbers very low to begin with when compared to other areas of the country. And then secondly, be able to take what are significantly low numbers and reduce them even further. So that's a credit to you and your team. And you touched on something in your report with the conversation with Mr. Farmer, is that this report and all this statistical help was generated from the home agency being the county police department, and all of those resources become available to the city of Wildwood via our contract with St. Louis County for police services. So I think that's something that's often overlooked in these contracts, is it's just not about you and your team. It's also about all of the support pieces that are in place within the entire infrastructure of the county police department that are available to the city of Wildwood via that contract. So I just thought I'd point that out in case people were unaware of that.
Right. Yeah, the precinct staffing is focused on our daily operations, daily patrol. We do have an in-house, precinct detective that does some of our follow-ups that we don't push off to our specialized detective bureaus. Our crime scene unit, we don't have an in-house crime scene detective, because if there's really not a lot happening, the person wouldn't be doing anything. So, we have a 20-man crime scene unit that if something were to occur, we have the staffing to supplement, our response. So all good stuff.
Thank you. All right, no more items for the information section. Moving on to old business. I show no items in no business.
Hey, Marshall.
Yes, sir, Mr. Lee.
Sorry, can I add one little item on the Safe Speeds initiative? Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to first and foremost give kudos to Captain Mundell and his team. They did a great job. But I also just wanted to really quickly comment on the interaction that the city has gotten from residents. Just from the information we put out on our social media and taking a look at our website, we've gotten a boost in traffic to our website over the last 2 weeks at a pretty high clip. Had to check that, but just looking at the post itself, there was about 25,000 individuals that have looked at it for more than a second. Let's just leave it there. So it seems like this is a very popular initiative, and it's getting a resounding support. So just wanted to give some kudos to Captain and the police precinct for getting that grant.
And Tom's the one that came up with the slogan. So
I gotta take a little bit of the credit for the slogan, but
absolutely.
But hey, I'm not the one who's out there with the radar. So
it always amazed me in my former career. It didn't matter which neighborhood you were in, from here to North County to South County to St. Louis City, no matter what the major issues were going on in that neighborhood, the population generally cares most about two things: traffic enforcement and visible presence of their police department. All right, moving on to our items in new business. The very first thing is Captain Mundell, you are up again with the 2024 annual crash report.
Okay, just an overview. Obviously, most of the document is stats and numbers and locations and maps and tables and graphs and all that kind of stuff. So, kind of in a nutshell, we've seen a decrease in our crashes between 23 to 24, about a 4% reduction, or lessening in crashes from about 493 in 23 to 473 incidents in 24. Number of injury crashes with that number has fallen slightly too. We went from about 71 incidents with injury in 23 to 64 injury incidents in 24. Our highest crash location is the roundabouts, unfortunately, at 109 Windsor Meadow. And these are typically pretty minor incidents. I don't know that we've had any injury accidents there. I'd have to look. But it's typically fender benders and a lack of probably courtesy and changing lanes, side swipe type of thing, or cutting someone off right at that entrance to 100 West, and the traffic going south on 109, along with that stuff the vehicles coming through the circle. So, that was something that has shown itself. Regarding fatal accidents, we have not had a fatal accident since 2019, which is kind of surprising. I think a lot of that had to do with the road improvements that MoDOT did do some additional signage on Highway 100. I think that helped with that. Typically with our fatal accidents, it's unusual situations that pop up unexpected. I believe one of the last ones we had on Highway 100 was a drunk driver. Daylight hours. This should not have occurred, but you got a drunk driver that does something that they aren't expected to do, and they're not as attentive as they should be. So they're kind of unpredictable, but again, we're going on 6 years now where we haven't had an incident. So we're happy about that. Overall, our crashes, Clayton Road, we look at our five main roads, which handle the majority of our traffic. Clayton Road has been pretty consistent in the numbers. Highway 100 has actually seen a decrease in accidents. Highway 109 has been consistent. Manchester Road is up slightly, and Manchester is the city street basically that goes from West Glen Farms, west out past Pond and Highway T, that part of Manchester Road. So typically those Manchester Road accidents occur on the east end, where the population and the traffic is with businesses and such. Old State Road's our last location. Crashes are down significantly in Old State. We've gone from 36 the previous year to 27. And I would attribute that a lot to the additional Chevron signage that was put in by the county highway department. I think that makes a big difference. And they're currently have a project underway to add some better friction on the pavement. So that project's underway now too. Our deer crashes are down slightly also. So that's kind of an overview of the book. And that's all I got for the accidents.
Well, all good news through and through, and it's a credit to you and your team. There's two things we got going for us in the city of Wildwood. We got a police department that's highly visible. We drive around in other areas than you could throw a rock and not find a police car. But I have yet to drive across the city of Wildwood without seeing at least one police car. And we're also bolstered by the fact that we have a significant population of county police officers who live in the city of Wildwood, who drive personal cars to and from work. And, by nature of the contract and the nature of the department, those cars are all similar. So nobody really can tell the difference unless they're looking to. So thank you to you and your team, Captain Lindell.
Yep, it's a pleasure.
All right, any other questions on the crash data? Yes, sir, Mr. Bannock.
Well, first of all, I appreciate this document. It for road safety geeks like me. This is good stuff. It's a tool, and like what you said, the information is useful, but it can be kind of misleading also, because all the numbers that are being generated are based on the total volume of that road. And it's not broken down by the average daily volume on that road. So, for example, Old State, typically, Old State is about 30% less. I checked it today on the MoDOT side. We're 30% less than 109, 30% less. That's South 109, 30% less than North 109. We're about 50% less of Manchester east of the 109, and about 30% less than. If what I'm getting at is if you took the average daily volume and plug those numbers into the total amount of the crashes, it changes how the results that you might come to, the conclusions you might come to. So I just want to point that out. And I think this might have been the first year that I appreciate that somebody actually threw in that these figures were not adjusted for average daily volume on those particular sections of roads. So, but one thing that I do want to bring out as far as why I think we've seen a reduction of crashes on Old State is just public awareness. And when I got started with this group, Citizens for a Safer Old State, we started out with a dozen people. We're up to over 720 members on our Facebook page. And nobody realized, even myself, had no idea how dangerous actually Old State can be if you're unaware. And just bringing public awareness as to when it's like we see as a group, the most crashes are not necessarily during snowy, icy conditions. It's when there's just a little bit of water on the road, just a film. And then that little bit of water combined with the pollens and the oil that's on Old State, it can be just like ice almost. You hit a section of road and you're just along for the ride, basically. So I'm grateful that that the high friction surface is going in. I think it's going to improve those figures even more on Old State. And but there's still a lot to be done on Old State. A lot of the other portions of Manchester or parts of Wildwood have been improved to the point where you can't do anything else. It's like Clarkson Road. Putting those bump outs in wasn't going to do anything. It's you've done some roads, you just do what you can, and then you leave it up to enforcement and maybe even public awareness of how dangerous those roads are to hopefully contain or even lower the accident rate. But yeah, just some general comments about all that. But I'm glad that the group that started has brought some awareness, and I think seriously, I think just the awareness of how dangerous the road is on Old State during certain conditions has driven those numbers down, because people drive a lot safer in it. Because they realize, they see the pictures of the cars off the side of the roads and the trees on top of the cars and all that, and just all that those vivid pictures of, hey, that could have been me. It changes behavior, and that's what part of what my group is trying to do, is change the behavior, the driving behavior of people. So anyway, thank you for letting me get on my soapbox there for a little bit. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
You brought up two items there. Traffic volume. So Old State Road has seen the amount of cars that use traffic road or Old State Road has increased obviously over the years for whatever reason. I mean, from Manchester to the Eureka area, you're either going to go on 109 or on Old State, and both of them are pretty busy. So traffic volume is very high. And then you mentioned crash rates. That when you put those numbers into the volume of traffic, the crash rate for Old State is very low compared to other locations. So I think the attention has been helpful. People need to pay attention. It's a weird road, and unfortunately, it's landlocked the way it is. You can't widen it really without cutting significantly into people's property. And I won't get on the soapbox there because that's a highway department issue. How to deal with the layout of the road and the construction and that. But I just want to point that out that yeah, there are accidents. They're typically not serious injury accidents. It's a lot of property damage, people going off the road, like you said. So we're fortunate that we're not having the injuries, and it's a low crash rate in comparison to other major roads. So
just to add on to that, I think a lot of people realize how dangerous it is, particularly at Ridge Road and Old State, and they take measures to which they really shouldn't have to do to reduce the risk because of the level of danger. Because there's a lot of people that come up north on Ridge Road who want during rush hour who want to go south, and they realize how dangerous it is that they actually go north and do a U-turn. Now, that's just a ridiculous situation that people have to go to those lengths, in their own community to feel safe. And that's what part of my group has, talked about for years now. So
it's a big problem. We could talk about this all night. Development and expansion of subdivisions, and there's just lots of people, and they got to get around some way, and they got to take a road, and the roads are very limited.
And now with Ellisville has voted in two big new subdivisions and then the new commercial properties.
Right.
So it's just adding and adding and adding to the issues that are on Old State that will someday have to be addressed by somebody.
Yep, you're right.
Yep.
You're right.
Mr. Loyal?
Just a quick question for Captain Mundell. I know that the county has changed the appearance of the police vehicles. Will the vehicles assigned to Wildwood still say Wildwood Police?
They will. So we do have a couple of them. And that's not something that they're going to go back and change all the decals. So
right.
As we, trade out vehicles, we actually got the first vehicle with the new design, which is a pickup truck. So it's pretty much the version that we used to have, where it says St. Louis County Police on it, but then below that it says City of Wildwood, as opposed to saying Wildwood Police.
So it will no longer say Wildwood Police?
It'll say City of Wildwood under St. Louis County. Yes.
There's a pickup truck that's got it. The City of Wildwood part's it's not very big, but it's there.
Right.
It's there. Yeah. And I didn't have any input on that. That's a department.
Well, yeah. As part of our contract process, I don't know, what is the procedure on that? Perhaps Thomas can help us with that. I like having that identity for Wildwood Police on there.
Yeah.
Partnership.
That is something. Oh, sorry, Captain.
Go ahead. I can't quote the contract, but our vehicles have always been designated, assigned to the city. And over the years, how it looked has changed.
Right.
based on the decal scheme. So they also changed the color, to blue and gold. Again, I don't know. I didn't have input
Well,
on that.
and to that point, is that something that when we talk about the contract in October, that can be a consideration?
I doubt that. The
Yeah, I'm
cars,
talking-
the cars
I
are,
understand your position on it.
Yeah. they're provided by the county, so
Yeah, but it's a contract, it's a deal. We have a deal.
Right.
And there's,
but they always want to recognize the cities that we work with, and
sure,
so that lettering will be on there. We'll
Right.
be getting 3 more new vehicles this year, so I think the first one's already here. So there'll be 2 more coming within the next couple months. So
sure. Go ahead to Mr. Lee.
Yeah, and there is, and I can just confirm this, that is something I don't know if the county will budge on it, but it obviously is an agreement. So in their case, it can be discussed, and there is nothing currently in the contract that stipulates that the city's logo be on there. So that was something we did check. So that would be something we could definitely address in
But
October.
that's something that, yeah, it's an annual contract, right? So we'll have the opportunity in October, if there's some adjustments that the city would like to make, that might be yeah, I mean, it's just, we've lost some identity in the process.
It is it's a 10-year contract with annual appropriation. So we still do have that. We have to re-up on the contract each year, but it is a 10-year agreement that kind of outlines the general provisions for that duration. But yes.
So
in
was
October.
the city consulted on the nomenclature on the vehicles?
In this case, the department was not. No.
Okay.
are you waiting for me to say something, or are we on
I
to the
think
next
we're
item?
ready to move.
If you're muted,
Yeah, I think our marshal is muted right now. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Jeff is.
I
There you go.
am muted. Now I'm back. I'm muted
There you
because my
go.
dog was barking, but that's okay. So, all right. So hearing no other things for the annual crash report, we'll move on to the next item under new business, the Turnberry Place Drive at Strecker Road proposed gate. So, Mr. Brown, I think you have a document on that.
I did post a memo to the agenda for y'all if you had a chance to glance at it. This is actually not a new item. Unfortunately, it's actually an old item at the city of Wildwood. This intersection has had turn restrictions in place since 1996, so it wasn't too much longer after incorporation that this issue first arose. And essentially at that time, the agreement was made to restrict the public street by putting a fence over the northbound lanes and then installing the delineator posts over the southbound lanes at Strecker Road. And this came from resident complaints relative to my understanding, because I certainly was not involved at the time, but I think the concern was relative to cut through traffic. As you probably are aware, that Turnberry Place Drive connects from Strecker Road over to Clayton Road. And in particular, before the county improved Clayton Road, there was a fair amount of traffic that was using it to access Strecker Road or Clayton, and vice versa. And so the residents complained, and the end result was the situation that we have in place and has been in place for some time. The delineator posts over the southbound lane were installed to maintain a degree of emergency service or access to the subdivision from Strecker Road. So it does allow that to occur. I guess we could certainly find out from our new fire marshal how many times that occurs, but it allows that emergency response in those instances where it might be necessary. So it's been in place since about 1996. The Homeowners Association does maintain the delineator posts. Public Works does not do that. That was part of the agreement as well. And in 2009, the HOA came back and requested the installation of a gate, from my understanding, over both directions, southbound and northbound. And that request went to the Board of Public Safety at that time, and it was not approved by the board, and it did not go any further at that point. So the situation was retained with the delineator posts until more recently, when the request has come back to the surface from the HOA and discussions with at least one council member. So this issue, I think Mr. Farmer probably wants to speak to it in more detail, has been in front of our Administration and Public Works Committee and the council already. And we are in a position, the department is in a position where we're trying to get bids, formal bids for a gate over the southbound lane. The goal is to, if we move forward, and we were authorized to move forward, provide a gate that would be agreeable to the Metro West Fire District and meet their requirements. So that's what we're proceeding to do. But we wanted to bring it to the board tonight, at least to have you the opportunity to weigh in on whether we should, or what your opinion might be, whether moving forward is a good idea or not. And so with that, I think I'll just wrap up and answer any questions, or allow Mr. Farmer to speak. I know our fire marshal may want to say a few things as well.
Okay, so first up, Mr. Farmer, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Rick and everybody. So I think actually, if I remember right, the decision by the Board of Safety in 2009 was not only to not have the gate, it was to reopen the road. And the conversations that I've had with, I'll say enough council members, is the gate concept in general, whether it is at Turnberry or the one that we looked at in Brightleaf that we wound up going with the delineators, or a new subdivision or whatever. Everybody wants to be out of the gate business. It's just not a wise or viable choice that we're seeing. So I'm almost wondering if the conversation we need to have is about not the gate, but about looking at reopening that road. Because when I was a kid and that road was blocked off, it was because the lower part of Strecker Road was literally like a death trap, and that got fixed several years later. And I think people are kind of trained not to go through there. So, I mean, at the moment, while the HOA is supposed to be taking care of it, they don't. That's where the problem comes, because we have residents complain that it looks terrible, which it does. It was damaged in the storm. The gate's been blown all over the place. The lineators aren't replaced when they're broken, things like that. And for whatever reason, we as a city don't insist that this is cared for in an appropriate way. And so I am almost willing to say I am absolutely certain that regardless of what we decide on this gate, there is not going to be a gate there. It is going to look much more like, are we opening this road or not? And I'm happy to answer whatever thoughts or questions you guys have on that. I don't want us to spin our wheels forever. And I think we might want to look at how that road needs to be actually configured.
Mr. Vanek, if you wouldn't mind waiting, I'd like to call on Deputy Chief Hafner to give us a brief rundown of what the impact of a gate there would be.
So access, that's our prime responsibility, is being able to deliver the product to the citizens that rely on us and have supported us through taxes and otherwise, to meet their expectation. If we put a gate in there, it would further impact our response efficiency to that area. It takes time. To put a fire truck out on Strecker Road, whether the gate has some sort of a whelp activation from a siren or a Knox key that we would have to stop and turn, or some other automatic system, those things can fail. And not only is that access choked down by an entire lane, if you want to put a gate in there, you're choking down that single lane even more. So that south side of that access, we have seen in the past when people have events in their homes, so on and so forth, there can be a number of cars that are kind of parked there. And I would absolutely hate it if we threw a gate up there and then we weren't able to get through because vehicles parking on the other side of it or something of that manner. Weather restrictions regarding snow and the operation of that gate. It's something that we're just adding more obstacles to our effective response. And, you know, currently subdivisions being built today with that number of homes in it, that those things aren't generally a question. They have to have 2 entrances, 2 exits. Access is code driven. We do have a number of rules and codes in place in our ordinance regarding gates. You know, but in this situation, I see the delineators there. I know that we have been able to pass through them in the past for responses. I can't give you a hard number is, you know, how many times we've been in that subdivision. That's a very, very subjective thing and based on so many different variables that can change year over year. So I don't know that that data would even really be credible. So I'm not in favor of it. And if the discussion is going to lend itself to actually opening up that entrance and essentially being able to utilize it as it was originally designed, that is something I would not be opposed to. Does anyone have any specific questions for me regarding the details? I don't want to get too deep into the listing all the regulations. I think Rick did a good job through adding that agenda piece. But if anyone has any specific questions for me, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Mr. Vanek?
Just a couple of questions for maybe Mr. Brown. This is a city street maintained by the city, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It's a
Yes,
public
okay.
street maintained by the city.
Okay. And the gate that they're talking about is just on the southbound exit, just on
The north side, the
North side.
southbound has like a weird curb and a plastic fence.
yeah.
Place the posts that are there now.
So, and would are they proposing that the residents get a clicker or something that allows them to go through, but only them or something? I'm just trying to get the general
So
idea of the gate.
The gate would retain the purpose served by the posts in that it would be there primarily to control access and restricted only to emergency vehicles.
Just emergency vehicles, it's not like special exit access for the people who are in that homeowners association.
No.
Okay. I was just kind of curious about that. So, yeah, I drove by there today. It's kind of a ridiculous situation. I mean, you
So
know,
now, I don't want to interrupt you, Jim, but just so you know, the gate, they originally wanted the gate because we did like a study. It's in Rick's report. Like some guy drove over these things 4 times. He's just a guy in the neighborhood. It's one person. And to solve this, the ask was a $20,000 to $30,000 gate, which is crazy.
okay, I understand. All right. Yeah, I've kind of formulated my opinion on that. So, yeah. Marshall's.
Muted again, I
Marshall
think,
is.
I know, I'm muted again. All right, so the white picket fences that we see up across what would be the entrance lane, I'm assuming, who put those up?
Those were installed under a project. The city was responsible for that project again shortly after about the time in 1996 when the restriction went into place.
So it's the larger topic here going to be. I know that the Board of Aldermen is looking for our input, and I know that I'm going to guess that Mr. Loyal has some stuff he would like to say about restricting access for any emergency equipment. And we just witnessed some pretty severe weather, and to the deputy chief's statement, tree goes down across that road. How does anybody get down it if there's only one way in? And so Mr. Gleason and then Captain Lindell.
I should have Captain was up there first. I guess kind of it's, as Mr. Parr was saying, avoiding some of the conversation. I think very quickly, I can tell you I'm very much anti-gate, very much the city paying for a gate. I know it was listed that there are 4 gates elsewhere in the city. I'm just curious if those are on public roads or those private roads, or just my own curiosity.
Those are all privately owned and operated on private roadways. But
On
Mr.
private roadways. Okay. I mean, I'm very much, there's to me, no reason we should be putting a gate there for them, just for the purpose of them not wanting traffic through there. I'm of the St. Louis County, I guess it wasn't Wildwood, approved the plan for the subdivision, had all the roads approved. It was approved based on traffic going through there. And I meant the same way I would be for opening it back up. I think there'd be a cost to even do that, since it appears there's been permanent curbing and all put in along with the fence. But just in the interest of the design of roads in St. Louis County, we don't have that. I grew up in the county. I cut through there when they put that road in. I was a teenager driving, or a little bit older, and I cut through there at times going through there. I meant because it was so bad going down Strecker. And I think that part of the problem has been alleviated. So anyway, I'll just leave it there, that not dwelling too long on the gate. If I don't know where we all stand, but if nobody is in that wanting a gate, pretty quickly we can move past that part and then just talk about what to do with it.
Captain Mundell, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I just pretty much agree with Chief Hafer that it hinders response. It's either open or it's not. The fact that someone drove through it to begin with and broke those downs, and obviously they were not in a big hurry to replace them unless they were trying to get the city to pay for it, I guess. I'm sure there's more than one person that rolls out that street. It's not just one guy. Basically, the opening has been made, and there's nothing stopping traffic from getting out of there to begin with. So, I agree. For us, gates are a challenge also. So, which can be just as urgent for us to get in there for some type of a crime in progress, as opposed to, a medical emergency or a fire emergency. So I agree.
Yeah. Kevin, Mr. Gleason, sorry. You're
Sorry, that's from earlier. I didn't lower my hand. Sorry.
That's okay. You bet. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Marshall. I just wanted to make a quick note of this, since we're talking about this gate in public roadways and how it does hinder response time. And currently there are no gates on public roadways in the city of Wildwood. I did want to note just when we do an RFP, which the bidding process has started, we have the RFP out there upon the request of the council, of course. And in that case, it takes time, resources, effort. The one note I would say, and this would be a decision by the full council, but it might be worth having the input here tonight too, would be maybe a broader discussion about the use of gates on public roadways in the city. Maybe it would be something to consider if the city would want to have a policy that guides its decisions on gates for future development, but also the implementation by potentially a HOA. They want to do it, there has to go through a specific process, but certainly the city would not be bucking up the money to pay for it, especially if it's going to hinder first responders.
So if the board or the council is looking for us to, respond on this, I think what we look for is our Board of Public Safety basically passing a motion, and how we want to word it, in my opinion, would be something that the Board of Public Safety does not support the installation of any restrictions on public roadways that would impact delivery of services. Does anybody? Yes, sir, Mr. Farmer, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna try to help out a little bit on the motion. If somebody wants to make it, it's probably not appropriate for me to do it, but I do. We had a part of this conversation a little bit on Monday night at our council meeting with a new subdivision that is being proposed. So it is an item that is coming up, I guess, more frequently, and so I think especially kind of hearing a not subtle voice from the police or fire department that these gates are just not something that. Certainly it's something they can work through if they have to, but they would prefer to not. I think it's important and probably helpful for the city council to get a kind of full-throated, like, hey, no more of this gate stuff, and let's figure out, if we need to do something on that road other than what is currently there, open it up or whatever it is. Maybe that's the bids that we need to be getting prices on instead of the possible gate.
Well, we could reword our motion to simply say that not only does just simply say that the Board of Public Safety does not support the installation of any restrictions on private or on public streets, and suggests that existing restrictions be removed when the opportunity presents itself. Mr. Loyal?
I guess the question I would have is, what are they seeking, specific to Turnberry Place, or our general opinion on it for the purposes of tonight's meeting? Maybe Thomas can help us.
Technically, on the memo, it's just for Turnberry. So it would
I
be
would
like
make a motion that we oppose the installation of the gate at Turnberry Place and Stricker Road.
And there's and other people feel free to weigh in. Is that because that is a motion? The motion is that Board of Public Safety opposes the installation of gates on Turnberry Road.
I'll second.
Any discussion before we ask for a full vote?
Why, if I'm not sure the proper process here,
That's okay.
if I could propose a alternate motion or a little more detailed motion, that we do oppose that. But I do believe, my motion would be we oppose, gating or obstructing any public road that's the responsibility of Wildwood.
So that should be two different ones. So it should be Turnberry as one, and then make the second one about the other thing.
Okay. I in that case, I second the motion on Turnberry. I think Jim already did.
Yeah. All right. So we have a motion and a second that the Board of Public Safety's position is to oppose the installation of a gate on Turnberry Road or street. And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please speak up. Motion carries that the Board of Public Safety is opposed to the installation of a gate on Turnberry. Second motion to be made is that regarding obstructions, that the board, I'll word it and somebody feel free to reword it, is that the Board of Public Safety's position is that they will not support the installation of any obstructions to the delivery of services on the streets in Wildwood.
I've got maybe a little cleaner way to say that, if
Sure.
you would.
However, you know who's going to like it and who's not. So.
Here's what I'm suggesting, and you guys can change it as you might like. Motion that the Board of Public Safety endorses a prohibition on the installation of gates or other physical obstructions on any public street within the city's jurisdiction, and that the board recommends the identification and removal of any existing gates or obstructions where feasible, in coordination with the Department of Public Works and other relevant city departments to uphold public access, traffic safety, and emergency service routes.
Well, if I can steal that language, I will make that motion. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay. All in favor of that verbiage being presented as a motion supported by the Board of Public Safety, say aye.
Aye. Amy,
Any
I can,
opposi-
oh, go ahead,
any
sorry, go ahead.
opposition? And I guess before we do the, any opposition, is there anybody wishing to make further comments? I'm hearing none, so anybody wishing to make opposing comments, please announce yourself. Hearing none, the motion carries.
Amy, I'll email it to you so you have the language, so you don't have to watch it back.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right. We knew that was going to be a robust discussion when we saw it on the agenda. All right, moving on to the next item is proposed snowplow removal and de-icing policy. So,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Marshall. Board members, want to present this to you tonight, not really with the intent of, well, hopefully you will support this direction that we're heading or hoping to go forward with. Basically, the department would like to put together a formal policy on snow removal operations that would govern the department's work for snow removal in the city of Wildwood. I think, as you know, during the wintertime, we have private contractors that we utilize to remove snow on our 350 lane miles of roads. And we've been doing this for many years since the incorporation, but we've never had a formal policy that we've put forth and run by the city council for approval. So I wanted to start with the Board of Public Safety tonight and present this to you. I don't have a formal draft ready to present for formal review and approval, but I just wanted to present the idea to you tonight. Certainly would be open to any feedback at this time. But essentially would like to put in paper what we've been doing by and large, and then add to it, essentially providing more detail and clarity, because I think it's important that we be a little more transparent with what we're doing so people understand it and understand why we're doing what we do. Because sometimes we do get in situations where residents may feel like we're not doing something, and it might be intentional, quite frankly. So having something on paper that we can communicate better to residents and maybe reference on our website, that kind of thing, I think would be a very, very valuable. And then I think it also helps us as we have changeover with contractors, and typically that's not very extensive every year, but we do have annual turnover with our contractors. It will help us in that regard to communicate to them what our expectations are, and then to hold them to that as well. So again, the starting point would be essentially to start in large part by putting on paper what we've been doing. And we have basically in our general operations, and I think most cities do this, we try to emphasize kind of a tiered approach, and that the first priority is our main streets, our more heavily trafficked roads that carry the predominant traffic. And so we try to keep them clear first, and then essentially save lesser volume streets, local streets for later in the storm event, focusing first on the high volume and the collector streets, then moving to the local streets and the cul-de-sac streets. So this would provide a little more clarity. In fact, we would like to present the actual, we have basically 28 snow removal routes that we have divided up amongst our 5 contractors. And with each of those routes, we would have the routes identified in our tiered system. So we would have all the arterial routes, the collector roads, and the local and primary roads identified in our route maps. And we can certainly present that to you if you're curious to see how that shakes out. But the intent would be to split all our roads down into the 3 routes: arterial, primary, collector, and local or cul-de-sac streets. And then we would first and foremost work to clear the arterial and primary streets, followed by the collector streets, and then the local and cul-de-sac streets. And then try to set some standards in terms of what we expect in a typical event, potentially for time frame. You know, we think we can get the streets cleared within so many hours of the storm completion. We think we can have them completely cleaned back, to face of curb or close to face of curb within another time frame. So those expectations are at least established so people can have somewhat of a yardstick to measure us by and measure our contractors by. So without getting too far in the weeds, that's, I think, the intent. And again, I don't have the full, we're just kind of starting on this right now, so I don't have a draft to present to you, but that is the general idea. And I would like to bring back a more full, robust policy to you at a later meeting for further consideration and maybe formal approval, and then take it to the city council for their review and approval. So with that, I'll wrap up and address any questions.
So this document is basically putting in writing or in written form the policy that you currently follow anyway with the contractors.
Correct. It would be kind of putting in writing the unwritten policy that we're following, but I would anticipate it would be more detailed as well. And I think I would add some other things that I thought we needed to be more explicit about with our contractors. So I think it'll be more detailed and be very helpful.
Sure. Mr. Loyal?
I think it's a good idea to have a policy. And the question I would have is what you're going to propose. Will it change what you're currently doing, as the marshal mentioned? Would there be residents that wouldn't receive as rapid a service as they had previously?
No, that is not the intent. We're not trying to. That's not the purpose of this, Mr. Lowe. Absolutely not. No, it's not intended to reduce the service or reduce our costs necessarily. But, well, I shouldn't say that. It's not intended to reduce the service. If we can reduce our costs and maintain the service, definitely. We've spent a lot on snow removal, and I think there are some gains that we can make and retain the service, but reduce our costs.
And one other component too, with your permission, Marshall.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Is that, we're with defining the streets, and this, like Director Brown had mentioned, with defining the streets, this is a process we currently follow. One thing we would look to do as well with publishing this new policy would be also having an interactive map that we currently use, as Director Brown mentioned, that we've got the 28 routes that are covered that break up the 350 lane miles. What we would hope to do is, if we're having a particular issue with one street or another, say it just for some reason the snow's not coming up like we thought it would, we would be able to pretty much allow the resident to go to an interactive map. They would see that road would be a different color than the rest. It would almost kind of give an indication that these roads are clear, this road has had an issue, or having a little traffic cone next to it, just to advise against that safety. But just also giving the resident reassurance that, hey, we understand that it didn't get cleared fully. We're going out there right now and we're working on it. So it's not back of mind. But the other component with this policy that's extremely important, it's just setting clear objectives, not only for the city, our contractors, but for residents too, to understand that, typically these policies you'll see from cities that, you want to have about 80% of pavement. I've seen anywhere from 70 to 90%, but 80 seems to be pretty consistent. Some residents do think that it should be done. The aprons of their driveways can be done too. On top of that, we do not clear aprons. That said, we do get a lot of complaints. So if we're able to point to a policy, then when the resident calls and is asking for public improvement on private property, then the city is able to fall back on a solid policy that would stand the test of time.
So is it safe to say that what we really need here from the Board of Public Safety is for us to make a motion supporting the city in developing a formal snow removal policy?
That'd be correct, Marshall.
And then, we can worry about how that policy is we won't be the ones worrying about how the policy is worded. We just support the existence or the establishment of a policy.
I think depending on sorry, Marshall.
I think it's a good idea to formalize the process and get it in writing, so that when somebody has questions, we have a an approved document to look at and say, this is what we follow as our process.
I honestly think, and Director Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, but depending on the timing, I think that this could come back to a subsequent Board of Public Safety meeting with the policy written up. So the Board of Public Safety can review said policy and then it would be forwarded to City Council with the recommendation.
Mr. Loyal?
That is definitely my plan, yeah.
Just to what Thomas, I would like to see the policy again. I'm in favor of approval of the development of the policy, but I wouldn't want to leave it there. I'd like to see it that we can approve the policy.
So I'll take a stab at wording the motion is that the Board of Public Safety supports the establishment of a policy regarding snow removal with first view of policy before supporting policy.
Okay.
Yeah, right now we're just supporting the establishment of a
Right.
policy
Right.
to be brought back to us for approval.
I would support that.
Okay, so I'll just turn that into a motion. I want to make a motion that the Board of Public Safety support the establishment of a formal snow removal policy to be submitted to them for review.
Mr. Gleason had a comment.
Mr. Gleason?
Yeah, we kind of went there. I just wanted to speak to, I very much support doing one, which we've already gotten to a motion. And I liked what Mr. Lee said just about setting objectives. All about, I've worked with subcontractors a lot, is I always called it expect and inspect. You set the expectations and then you can measure against it. And it allows citizens to do it with us, but it also allows us to do it with subcontractors and hopefully get more bang for our buck with them too. And they know exactly what they're bidding on. So very supportive.
Any other comments on it?
I second your motion.
Second the motion. Okay. So the motion has been made and seconded that the Board of Public Safety supports the establishment of a formal policy on snow removal to be submitted to the Board of Public Safety for review. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Can I just add a quick caveat?
Yes, sir.
Perhaps? Only because, we don't, to this point, we haven't had these meetings like super regularly. And so in the event that this gets, moved to, let's say, summer, fall type thing, when we actually need to start making these decisions, we might want to say, like, we can review it in conjunction with, I don't know, whatever it would be, admin and PW or the council, just so we don't miss the boat, so to speak, before snow starts falling again.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying is that instead of us reviewing it and hashing it out and then pushing it forward and somebody else hashing it and reviewing it and everything else. Yeah, I'm not opposed to a concurrent review of the policy.
Cool.
So we can just, I'm assuming somebody will reword that motion to include it.
I don't know that I would support that change. I
All
think
right,
I would support us supporting the development of the policy, but I would like to see it before we forward it on and the policy is actually developed, if that's our role.
so Mr. Brown, do you think we could have a draft of this policy available by the next Board of Public Safety meeting?
I think that was my goal, would be to have something to you, and I'll commit, we'll do everything we can to have it for you at a meeting in June. If that's okay.
And because, all right, and let's go that route, and I think we meet our objective then. So. Any other discussion on the snow removal policy? Hearing none, I have one item for miscellaneous. I know that we have a new fire chief in the Fire Protection District. I would like for the city to invite the fire chief to come before the board in our next meeting, just for a general conversation about his views on how the fire department will interact with the city and his future plans and items like that. It's not an interrogation of him. It's more of a welcoming of him to the Public Safety Board for introductions and his overall process, so to speak. So I would just like to make that invitation. I don't know that we need a motion for it. I know that
I would-
Jen's talking about.
Did we approve the previous motion to
I-
forward to or recommend the development of policy regarding the snow removal?
Amy, can you
I
check
didn't
back
think-
on the minutes? I don't
Yeah,
think
I
there
didn't
was a
think we did
vote.
either.
We
Yeah.
did not, I'm sorry. So, all those in favor of the proposed or the motion regarding snow removal policy, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we will, under the understanding, we'll see that at the next public safety meeting.
And I agree with your recommendation to invite Chief Barthelmess to the meeting. I think that'd be wonderful, just to welcome him
Yeah.
and to tell him we want to be partners.
Well, and we see Captain Mundell every meeting, and so we're up to date on what the police department is doing. I think it would be, and we've had, the blessings of having the fire protection district represented at our meeting, but we have a new chief in place, and I think it would be nice to get to meet him one-on-one during a meeting.
In this case,
I can reach out to him. I know him very well.
I'm sure you do. So. All right, any other items for miscellaneous?
I just have a question for Mr. Brown. It kind of goes back to the pedestrian signaling. The signal that was struck at Cherry Hills Meadows and what Manchester Road, is the intent to replace that?
Actually, I think the thought we have is not to replace it in the median, as it was previously installed. So the lights will be on the outside.
But they are going to do some warning system there.
Well, we'll retain the flashing beacons at that location, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's just that one in the center median that would be removed. Will not be removed, but not be replaced because it's hit very often.
Sure, multiple times. Thank you.
Any other items under miscellaneous? Hearing none, I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Farmer makes a motion, Mr. Loyal seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? No opposition. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Yeah.